I'm Jenny Gage, and this is Life Take Two. Hey, everybody, welcome to Life Take Two. I'm Jenny. I know there's a lot of great stuff out there on YouTube. I always appreciate you stopping on one of my videos. As the year winds down, I personally am becoming more and more concerned about the rights of a minority of citizens here in the United States who identify as transsexual. 7 years ago, I left the Mormon church after 44 years born and raised because of a single lesson one Sunday entitled The Evils of Homosexuality, in which the entire point of this women's Sunday school lesson, it's actually called the Relief Society in the Mormon Church, was teaching that people who identify as LGBTQ are evil, satanic, that they are burning in Mormon hell for the rest of eternity, which is called the Celestial Kingdom. What's crazy about that Sunday that I left the Mormon church is that for the first 4.5 decades of my life, I had also hated LGBTQ people. Or at least I thought I did, because I had been indoctrinated to believe that they were the most evil things on the face of the planet. And any other time in my life, I could have easily been that young Mormon Sunday school teacher standing there teaching that lesson. And yes, there's certainly a longer backstory as to why that day I just snapped and couldn't put up with that ideology anymore. But really, the short version is I had had somebody very close to me in my family come out as gay and been an active participant in treating them like absolute shit. And then I made friends with 3 lesbian couples through an MLM that, of course, every Mormon girly has to have an MLM that she's part of. And for the first time in my life, I had seen up close and personal real life people that I had been taught were evil, and discovered for myself that they were anything but. So I've done everything that I can in the past 7 years since leaving the Mormon church to support this group of minorities that for some reason has turned into everybody's boogeyman. Everybody from churches and school districts and government agencies and just general hate groups is always picking on the LGBTQ population. And it's been really alarming to me to see some of the policies coming out of the White House. In recent weeks here, the White House has declared trans activists as domestic terrorists and subjugating them to raids, subjugating them to imprisonment and detention by ICE. And I've realized in the past few weeks that while I've sought to be an activist and to support legislation and to speak out against the intentional targeting and hatred towards trans individuals, I've never really understood transsexuality myself. I do have trans friends now, which I never did when I was a member of the Mormon church. I have a handful of trans friends who I love and respect so much. And while we have conversations about a lot of really deep things, I've never really sat down and dialogued with them about what it means to be trans. It's one of those things that, as much as I've deconstructed MAGA and all of my religious ideology and the misogyny that had been drilled into me in 44 years of Mormonism and then another 4.5 years in Christianity after that, I've only been out of MAGA and out of religion for 2 years. So it's been a gradual transition. I've been trying to deconstruct and look at all of the parts of me that I think are toxic and harmful, all of the ideology that was drilled into me from the time that I could walk and talk. I was indoctrinated in white supremacy from age 3. And it's always so ironic to me how many religious groups say that they don't want their children to be taught about homosexuality in elementary schools when I was taught about homosexuality at church. Like, I would have never known about it if when I was 8 or 9 years old, we hadn't had a little Sunday school lesson about girls kissing other girls and boys kissing other boys. And it actually put ideas in my head. A week later, I actually kissed one of my girlfriends in the back of our station wagon, and I was literally like 8 years old. Anyway, I find it ironic that from a very young age, my church taught me about homosexuality to warn me against it when all the Christians are so worried that it's the schools that are teaching people to be gay. I did definitely feel like I was probably going to hell because I had kissed my best friend whose name was also Jenny, because everyone in the 70s was named Jenny. But I was instilled with hatred for LGBTQ from a very young age. So I do think that I've had some harmful and just incorrect ideas about what transsexuality is. So I've started drilling all of my trans friends on every question that I have. And it's been such an eye opener to me. I've also been watching documentaries and researching and listening to podcasts from trans people on what it means and what it feels like in the experience of being trans. And I've done a couple of interviews, one of which I'm going to share with you in just a minute. And as I have all these conversations and dive into something that I've never understood, that I very clearly misunderstood, and that I never saw any motivation to understand because I'm not trans, so why does it matter to me? As I've dug into this, one thing jumps out to me loud and clear, and it's a question. And the question is this: why are we as citizens okay with our government and religious institutions controlling our personal identities, which seems like an immense invasion of personal privacy, and it is. Our government was established to protect us from outside forces and to protect us from one another, to establish a social contract that would preserve the safety and security of society and the individuals within that society from harm. The micromanaging of the identities of the citizens should never be something that a government even dips its toe into. And that's exactly what's going on with government policies against transsexuality. Transsexuality is very personal to an individual's identity. The deeper I dug into it, the more ridiculous it seemed that our government cared about it or set policies around it at all, especially since a lot of the friends that I spoke to 200 years ago wouldn't have been considered even cross-dressers or transsexual at all. They would have looked exactly like our founding fathers or exactly like royalty in the French court. But modern Americans have decided that real men don't wear powdered wigs and rouge and lipstick. So if a man in America today likes to wear skirts and wigs to work, then there's something wrong with him. So please join me for this conversation with my trans friend Jules, who I consider like my adopted big sister, as she explains what she's afraid of, what her hopes are, and what life is like being trans. Hey everybody, this is Life Take Two. I'm Jenny Gage. Today I'm joined by a special guest that I'm really excited to have you listen to. So I hope you'll stay with us through this whole interview. My friend Jules reached out to me a couple days ago to share with me a couple of things that have happened to some of his friends who are lesbian women who are married, who had their house raided by Homeland Security. So Jules and I are going to be diving into that today. And I do want to give a little bit of an emotional warning at the top here that we are going to talk about some things that may be a little bit upsetting. I'm going to be really conscious of my own emotional health as we dive through talking about human beings being targeted by the White House, by our government, and by some current policies. So if you need to take a breather, if you need to put this on pause for just a second and give somebody a hug, then please do, because it's kind of rough, and some of the things, Jules, that you've texted over to me really shook me. So first, I'd like to start with the text that you sent me the other day. And as I dove into this myself, I wanted to go to Google and I wanted to find that it wasn't true that the White House is targeting trans people and labeling them as domestic terrorists and then opening them up to unwarranted search and arrest. I wanted that not to be true. So I went to Google, I asked ChatGPT, I pulled up every article that I could. And what I found was that I kept landing on official government pages like justice.org, like the whitehouse.org, and I was finding very current articles with language that was so upsetting to me, I could barely read through the articles, where it was specifically saying that there are these radical ideologies being spread across America in regards to trans people and homosexuals, and that anyone speaking out about trans rights is now considered by the White House to be a domestic terrorist.
Yes.
So I fact checked this on myself and it absolutely shook me. So can you tell me and my audience what it was that you texted over to me the other day?
Yes, I sent over the memo that was written by Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. And my friend, one of the ones that was in the house when that got raided by Homeland Security, she sent me this basically this memo that had come out. And when I got it, I thought, oh, this is something generated by AI or anything that we have nowadays, and uh, targeting the trans community. I myself, being in the part of the trans community, I'm like, oh, I gotta fact check this myself. And as you did, Jenny, I went all over Google, I went all over the internet, and I started popping it up everywhere. I think one of the biggest places that this targeting is happening is in Texas already. Um, I do live in California. It's a sanctuary state. 4 hours in New Mexico, which is also sanctuary. But the way it's reading is it'll probably come over into any state. And it was just scary. So, I mean, when I sent you that, I'm like, even if I went online with Jenny, I can't present as myself anymore because, and it's kind of distressing because, you know,
So, Jules, this is the first time that I've ever seen you not looking like my favorite purple haired big sister. I've never seen you dressed like a guy ever. And it was kind of jarring when I first hit record here. It's like, oh, where's like Jules? This isn't how I picture you. You have such female energy. And I know that I text you and say, like, you're like my big sister that I've never had. Although I think that you're a little
which is
bit younger.
fantastic.
Did we decide you're younger than me? But you have that big sister energy. So you're now being forced to present in a different way. And I have to say genuinely that the second I got those texts from you yesterday, investigated, went through and saw what's officially on our government websites, that trans people and anyone who speaks out in favor of trans rights is now being labeled as a domestic terrorist. I did have this moment of pause where I thought, for me to engage in this, does this put me in the realm of domestic terrorism if I'm standing up for my trans friends? How long till they come knock on my door? Because I do defend trans rights passionately. It's the reason why I left the Mormon church. We had a single lesson one Sunday in 2018 on evils of the LGBTQ lifestyle. And I got up and walked out after 44 years of Mormonism. And then that was eventually one of the main reasons why I left Christianity also, was the hatred towards a group of people that I don't think that there should be any hatred for. So I immediately got done reading those texts from you, researching, fact-checking, seeing that this is something that's actually happening. And then I did a first video talking about trans rights. And this is the follow-up, and I'm so happy to have you on. So what's happening, that Pam Bondi memo that you sent to me, it's a leaked memo. She's saying that they are financially incentivizing people to rat out trans activists who are now labeled as domestic terrorists. And the first thing that came to my mind was the 1930s Germany, was the spy system. The book, The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom, that I've read so many times, where she talks about how that kids will rat out their own parents, and brothers and sisters would rat people out to the, Hitler's SS and the Gestapo, and people would end up in concentration camps. And that's something that I never thought that I'd see in America. I don't know how many books that I've read about communist Russia, about the gulags, about what happened in China during their communist revolution under Chairman Mao. And that always seems like something that's so far off. And I've always had this feeling of, I'm so glad that I live in America, where we have freedom of speech, where law-abiding citizens' rights are protected, where we have due process, where we can live out our own lives according to our own consciences. And now all of that has just gone by the wayside. And now the trans community is open to that too. And specifically, that cash incentive puts them under the umbrella of Homeland Security. That if I rat out and say, hey, I have a friend who's a trans activist, that it's Homeland Security that's now has a free-for-all to knock on your door and take you to God knows where. Correct?
Correct. And that was one of the big things that got me on that memo. I'm like, how's this going to play out? Am I going to walk into work one day and it happened there? Is it going to, or are they going to stop, here at my new place, which, I'm with family or what, and I didn't know. And, at that time, it's just, and then on top of that, my channel had a lot to do with a transition, that's why it's called Area 5T1, because there's 5 T's to my channel, and the first one is transition. And then on top of that, I have, all my subscribers, and many of them are part of the community. And therefore, I don't want it to overflow onto them. So now I already had the rebrand, coming up in the beginning of the year, and have cut a new niche on it because, like, I've seen how your channel has gone from Mormon to MAGA to now we're going into this. I was kind of taking a different direction, and I had gotten this nice neon sign made to reveal, and it's revealed here now on your channel. But it was just,
I love it.
It's been going a different direction for me now, but
your whole life is going a different direction now, right?
Yeah.
And not by choice. So, Jules, will you tell me what happened to your 2 lesbian friends?
Well, they were home one night, and all of a sudden they hear some intercoms outside, and
like megaphones type of thing.
Megaphones, yeah.
Okay.
Like if a police car, usually you do it off the radio. I used to be a paramedic, and you can talk off the speaker on your CD, and it radiates outside, and they start, and they look outside, and there's all kinds of lighting, and when they look outside, they see a tactical vehicle, and has this arm stretching out, and it's going towards their door, and they're asking them to come out. What happened is my friend's wife got everybody down, stuck on the floor, and she says when she stood up, there was all kinds of green lasers all over the trunk of her body. So when she walked out, she didn't comply with everything, walked out, had her hands up. You can see it when we post the video on here. And
how did you get the video that we're going to share? I'm going to insert that after your story. Did they send that to you themselves?
They sent it to me themselves. It's off their doorbell.
So this isn't something that we can get. It's not up on TikTok or anything. We're going to be sharing this here for the first time. Okay.
Yeah, I got it. They sent it to me off their doorbell cam. If we ever wanted to speak with them, we can do a live with them. They offered to do that. Anna, which is the one that started coming out, is my friend's wife, comes out with her hands up, complying with everything. And she's like, what's going on? Who are you? And they never identify themselves. But by the end, they wanted.
So they don't even show badges or anything.
No, they didn't even identify themselves over the phone. Because she thought it might have been a joke or something. And she's coming out, and they were mainly looking for my friend's father-in-law.
There,
Apparently he said something online to someone else, and they must have ratted him out. So as she's coming out, she's compliant with what they say. The father, I say, was probably lucky he's still alive because he didn't have his hands up. came out with a glass of iced tea in his hand. And then later on, there is a video where you show the kids coming out. They have about 3-4 kids, and they're coming out with their hands up.
How old are the kids?
One's like like just turned a year old. The other one's like 2, 3. Then they have a teenager that they adopted, and they're coming out, complying with everything. She said once they got outside, Homeland Security had about 20 agents out there in full tactical gear, and the police department there in Florida, in the city of Florida that they lived in, had about 30 vehicles. And to me, what I say, it looks about an overuse of resources.
Right.
To me, what I see is that they could have probably knocked on the door first, said, hey, we're here to serve a warrant. This is who we are, identified themselves. And I think there would have been more complaints as friends rather than having all this mess of people just come in, go inside. They basically went inside. There is video that she sent me recently of the agents going in, fully armed, searching the house, and I think taking the gentleman's computer. That's it.
So I've been so upset about this. Like, I'm so upset about everything that's going on right now. I'm still like emotionally raw over, we have this Mexican food chain here in Tucson, and ICE invaded and just literally took workers in the middle of cooking meals for people, right? And just deported them, and they're gone. So I think that I'm just like emotionally raw. I feel like we're all just kind of living in shock over what we're seeing happen to people. Ever since you texted me, like, I've just been picturing myself just sitting around in the evening, watching Netflix, cleaning up after dinner or whatever, and having somebody knock on my door, drag my kids out in the yard, and have all of these law enforcement vehicles. And the lack of identification is such a huge thing. The lack of the due process. Like, there is no due process anymore. And our right to privacy is something that was supposed to be ironclad. You can't come into my home, you can't come into my space, and you can't touch me until we've gone through that due process, unless I'm an immediate threat to somebody, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm standing there with a weapon, then sure, you can put cuffs on me and drag me away. And
probable cause.
There has to be a probable cause. And now there's no more probable cause. Bring all of these agents to somebody's property and touch my kids and drag them out into the yard. You've got to be kidding me. So what came of it? Then what?
He was arrested, and they took him who knows where. And he was questioned for a couple of days, and basically they let him back out after a couple of days, and they did do a news article on it.
Okay, well, if you can get that to me, we'll post that in the description.
To me, it just goes back to, do you really need to use this much resource that even comes out of our pockets to knock on a perfectly peaceful family, mm-hmm. have no firearms in the household, and just invade their home like this? And as opposed to going in, like I said, with a warrant, knocking on the door. If they don't comply, yes, then you go in.
So the lack of the due process. So did it not have anything to do, though, with them being lesbians? Was it just because of the dad?
I think it had to do with that. But he does talk, he's gay himself. And I don't know if it had to do with the fact that he may have been talking to someone straight online.
So he's not sure why he was arrested, and they're not clear on why their home was invaded. No. So dad is gay. He's dad of one of the wives. So dad is gay, and he's vocally outspoken about being LGBTQ online.
Yes.
He's afraid of ICE. Mm-hmm. He speaks about that online. And the two women, they're a lesbian couple.
Yes.
So
married.
Jules in Florida. So did they feel that they were targeted because they're LGBTQ?
Yes, they did.
I'm so sorry. And I just can't believe that this is the country that we live in right now.
Anna wanted more people to see it. I did post a short about it. She wanted to go out there because she really thinks it has to do with targeting marginalized groups.
So we aren't clear on why their home was invaded. They aren't clear on why their home was invaded. They aren't clear on why the dad was arrested.
And they haven't, from the media I've watched in Florida, you can go online and watch the news. I haven't seen any clear charges on there.
But what we do know is that there are documents on government websites saying that trans activists are now considered domestic terrorists. Correct. And that law enforcement, that would be ICE, Homeland Security, etc., is at liberty to invade their homes. That just being a trans activist makes you a domestic terrorist.
Correct.
So we don't know if these two events are linked. We can't say for certain that their home was invaded because they're lesbians. We can't say for certain that their home was invaded because dad speaks out openly about LGBTQ rights. Mm-hmm. But we do know that that is the potential of something that could happen to people who speak out about trans rights.
Yeah.
So, Jules, as we hear this whole dialogue going on, as we hear Donald Trump getting inaugurated and saying, I'm going to get trans athletes out of women's sports, and we're going to make sure that there's no trans people in the bathrooms, etc. As you hear more and more dialogue hating trans people, something that I think of all the time is that most people, unless you are transsexual, do not understand transsexuality. And I'd like to start by diving in a little bit to our background, because I think that one of the reasons why I didn't understand trans at all was that, like you, I was raised Mormon. Mm-hmm. And in Mormonism, there's a document called the Family Proclamation, which you know, right? Released in 1995, where the Mormon prophet, by revelation to the entire world, sent out this little, basically a memo from God straight to everybody else. And in this memo, he says that gender is eternal. So Mormons believe in a pre-existent state. It's our past life. And this document just confirmed that in our past life, where we lived with Elohim and our heavenly mothers and Jesus Christ before he became Jesus Christ, that we were spiritually born to Heavenly Father and one of the heavenly mothers. And we were born as a spiritual male or female.
Correct.
And that was something that had always kind of been unofficial in Mormon doctrine, but it wasn't until 1995 when that document, the Family Proclamation, came out that said that your spirit was a girl spirit or a boy spirit even before you came to earth. That really sealed the LDS hatred for LGBTQ people, because it proved that not only was I born with female genitalia, not only were you born with male genitalia, but that my very spirit had been created to be a woman's spirit. And that Family Proclamation also goes on to talk about some of the roles of men and women. Mm-hmm. It says that women are, do you remember, women are primarily
makers and to bear children.
Bear children, nurture. And then it reveals that men are
take care of the home, basically go out and work and
provider dad. Mm-hmm. And then it goes on to warn that anybody who tweaks anything about these gender roles and doesn't want to get married, because it does command marriage, that just like in the Garden of Eden where Adam and Eve were commanded to marry, that all of God's spiritual sons and daughters are commanded to marry. Goes on to say that if people tweak this at all and don't do it in God's way, then not only will you be cursed and your family be cursed, but that great calamities will come to the earth. Correct. So growing up Mormon, I got my first job as a newlywed, and I worked in a mall, and there was a man who clearly was a man because he had kind of hair like you could tell he was a man. But he was a cross-dresser, and he dated another man. Sometimes his boyfriend would be there after work to pick him up. And I believed that he was going to hell. I believed that he just chose to be a weirdo. And I knew that he could never go to heaven because God had commanded us to embrace our divine eternal gender. Now, you also grew up Mormon.
Actually, Jenny, I didn't, but I grew. I'm a
That's
Mexican,
right. You converted.
and I was a convert at age. I'm trying to think about age 24, 25. I was in nursing school. Um, yeah, so no, actually, it would be older. I mean, I was just the cutoff for a mission, and they were trying to get me to go on one. I do think about a lot is that growing up in a Mexican household, that you have a big culture of machismo, you know,
I dated a couple of
you
Mexican
know,
machismo men. Yeah.
yeah. So, that keeps you in the closet because they're constantly teaching you to be a man, patriarchal and everything. And then I was going to Catholic school, and you definitely hear in Catholic school, this is a sin. They teach the same thing. I remember when we had family life classes, sex education, they said being homosexual was a sin. They said it right there in class. And then when I converted to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I remember when I was still here in San Diego, before moving to Florida, we had, I don't know if it was Prop 8, there's another one. They were wanting to add the 14 words to the California Constitution, basically saying that marriage was between a man and a woman.
I'm pretty sure it was Prop 8, and I spent time and money fighting that, even though I lived in Arizona.
Yeah.
I helped fund the battle against gay marriage in California. Like that was any of my business.
Thing was, with the church saying they're not involved in politics, they would hand us signs after church for us to go out and take them to people's houses and put them up. And now I think about back into all that, and then you have to be the patriarch of that house, you have the priesthood, you have everything. That really just grew in me, and I never thought I would find my true self,
So growing up, did you feel like you were, you identify as female, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, in my teenage years, if I was home alone, I would try on makeup. I would try on female clothes, everything. But I kept hiding it. You just want to not bring out that because culturally, you're brought up with a certain way of thinking. And then eventually also spiritually, because I went to Catholic school all my life and they taught us against that. Then eventually I convert to Mormonism, and sure enough, I was in the church for 30 years and against it. Eventually, my wife that I was sealed to, we divorced, and then we had a daughter. My daughter got baptized, but she was the first one to actually say, I don't want to go to church anymore, to the church anymore. And that's what kind of started drawing me away, because going alone to church, it just wasn't right.
So as a teenager, you would try on makeup and stuff when people were gone.
Mm-hmm.
And when you put on makeup and put on a skirt or something, you just felt more like yourself.
Yeah.
So here's why I think that targeting trans people is so arbitrary and so weird. I genuinely thought that it was a choice that people made. You've decided you want to be a lesbian. You've been traumatized in your childhood, so now you're gay. Mm-hmm. And trans people, those are just, and I'm sorry again, for educational purposes, I think that it's important to talk about what I used to think in the past. I thought trans people were weirdos. And it's so arbitrary because whoever decided that women get to wear makeup and men don't? Who decided not very long ago, because for all of human history, all we had was skirts and societies where people had pants, like the Netherlands and some of the colder countries to the north, the women also wore pants. Everybody wore pants. So right now, across the globe in 2025, there are still nations. I go to Hawaii in the summertime sometimes, and the Tongan men come to church in skirts, right? Yeah. They have their little wraparound skirts, and all the women are in muumuus. There's still a large part of the world where we as Americans would consider their dress very different. The women are dressing masculine, the men are dressing very feminine. And it's very arbitrary that in the United States, we've decided that men can only wear polo shirts and dockers and short hair and no makeup, no lip gloss, no nothing, when for most of human society, men have ornamented their bodies just as much as the women, and sometimes even more. In Arizona here, and I know that you lived in New Mexico for a long time, so you were surrounded by First Nations people. We have a lot of reservations around us. I'm surrounded by tribal people. And I was at Trader Joe's here. I did like 3 different videos on this. I'm just getting bananas. And this person walks up beside me with this glossy, glowing, jet black, raven black hair, like down past his hips. And his hair looked like it was alive. It was so beautiful. It was so glossy. And he turns around. He has turquoise earrings. He has these beautiful dark eyelashes. He didn't have any makeup on, but he was clearly Navajo. And I say that because of some of his jewelry and some of the things that were on him. And then he had this gorgeous wife. He was maybe like in his 30s. And I stopped grocery shopping. I was just standing there holding the handle of my grocery cart.
Right.
Watching this man walk around the store with this beautiful wife, and I think they had a little baby in their cart, or maybe she was pushing him in the stroller. And here's what hit me, because we were hot in the middle of Donald Trump's first couple of months of office, right? And he was already talking about trans people all the time. And it hit me that if Donald Trump saw this Navajo man, he would have immediately thought, this guy dresses like a woman. He needs to cut his hair. He needs to buy himself a boring little Coors Light t-shirt and some old baggy sweats and, Nikes or whatever. This was the most beautiful man that I have ever seen. And even his mannerisms and stuff, he was just so graceful. Today, we would consider him effeminate.
Right.
So why is it that in Navajo culture and in cultures around the world, it is completely acceptable, and you're not a domestic terrorist if you decide that you want long, you usually wear purple hair or some beautiful color, if you want to wear long glossy hair, if you want to paint your face a little bit, which again, all of the First Nations people around, they paint their faces for the powwows and the different things.
Yes, they do.
But if you are an American man and you want some paint on your face and you want a skirt and you want bright, colorful clothing and you want long hair,
that's a good question. I don't know why and I would say this is less than 1% of the population too. And I don't know why they decided to, since it's a different diagnosis, or it's just something different to them. And they're trying to find a new group to just, hey, let's do away with this group. Let's rebooting the population to a white, cisgender, heterosexual population.
So then I went to the Scottish festival.
Yeah.
Have you been to a Scottish festival?
Yeah, and kilts.
Oh, good Lord. So there was a Scottish band, and Kevin knows, I was blushing. I've never up close seen men like this. Every one of them hair down to their butts, and then these leather tank tops and the kilts and their lace-up boots, and some of them wore eye makeup. There was a drummer in one of these bands, and he had black eyeliner on, and then he had this facial chain. I actually bought one, a face chain. It's like a necklace that goes over the bridge of your nose and tucks behind your ears. And he just had these ripply muscles and the chest hair hanging off the top of his leather tank top. And honestly, as Americans, we would be like, oh, that guy's probably gay, right? They were the most manly men that I've ever seen. And none of them would want the short hair and the Coors Light t-shirts and the Dockers and the Nikes.
Right. And one thing I would say, and this is one of the big things, is when I started transition, I looked at it and I looked at my wardrobe. I kept all my men's wardrobe, and I could wear it dressed as a female. But yet, the other way around wouldn't go. The men wouldn't wear women's clothes because they would be, judged as.
Well, that's because the patriarchy is stupid, and they think that men are superior.
That's one thing I always looked at in my closet. I had 2 sides of my closet: feminine clothes, but yet I could still wear the male clothes on my,
That's so funny because I wear Kevin's jeans. Like we're
yeah,
the same size jeans. I just have to
yeah,
roll him up because he's a lot taller than me. But he would never wear like this.
you
I
know,
can't wear my clothes.
wow. Sometimes if you go back and look at some of my old YouTube videos, I'd show up from work. I would come home. I would have my, say, a polo shirt on from work, get done up for my video and go out and do my videos. And it was, still the male clothes that I wore to work.
So when you have really beautiful wigs, when you have your beautiful, colorful wigs and you have your makeup and your lip gloss and your eyelashes and all this stuff, do you feel more like yourself? That's what I'd like you to talk about is
Yeah,
what makes you do that?
it's euphoric to be yourself. You feel your true self. I mean, that's one of the biggest hashtags I put on my channel. I'm always true self, because that's who you are and that's how you feel. When it's not like you just wake up one day and say, if you're a woman, just wake up one morning and say, hey, I'm a man, and just start wearing my old clothes. And on the other side of the spectrum, just wake up, you're a man, and just wake up one morning and say, oh, I'm a woman. No,
you put on a little lip gloss and you feel a little bit more like yourself.
yeah, but it's not so much that. It's something you've always internalized. It's in there, but it's internalized, and you then once you figure that out, and it wasn't just that I went and just said that to myself one day. I actually went to a therapist and spoke out with them, and she said, yes, you have what's called gender dysphoria. And she says, I would suggest that you start doing more
Put on a
things.
skirt and see how it feels.
See who you really are. And like one day I showed up with just earrings on, and she was like, okay, she said, wear them more often. One day I showed up with makeup on. She said, wear it more often. My last marriage was a big deal, was that she started finding some of these objects. And she was like, oh, no, this is wrong. And to think of the
Because
fact,
was your last wife Mormon?
no.
Okay.
No. She was
she Christian?
atheist.
She was atheist.
And very liberal. I mean, liberal, extreme liberal.
But transsexuality is so misunderstood that...
Yeah, that was the one issue that she would not take as... That was very, very interesting that I found.
Well, I'm sorry.
No,
and that's hard too when you're in love with someone and you're married and not be able to self-express. And I have to say that I do understand that because I was married for 24 years and my ex-husband had a very specific way that he wanted me to be. And I know that this isn't the same, so I'm not trying to say that I completely understand everything that you've gone through, but I was really a tomboy growing up, right? Yeah. And the Mormon church has a very specific idea of how they want women to be, which is high heels and pantyhose back in the day and dresses and long glossy Utah curls and all this stuff.
And the long skirts.
The long skirts, yeah. Really long. Very conservative femininity, right? Ballerina farm and all that.
Yeah.
That was not comfortable for me. So I was married for 24 years to a man who, if I ever just wore like sweats and a baseball cap, then that drove him crazy. He hated that. He wanted me to be a very specific way. So I understand just a little bit, not exactly, but just a little bit of what that feels like to be with somebody who has an expectation of you presenting in a very certain way. I had to present as the Mormon housewife at all times. Jake was never okay with me being anything other than that. So you start experimenting just a little bit and you just feel good. It's not you're trying to be some creepy creep by putting on a wig.
No, not at all. It's mainly, when you look at the stereotype that's out there about it, is that you're a creepy creep that's going to go and do something to children. And it's not that. Granted, every population, every sexuality, every gender, there can be one of those, but they don't look and say that.
But most of them are heterosexual men.
Most of them are heterosexual men. And
The data on men hurting children and women and everybody is overwhelming.
positions of power too. Like
Mhm.
you see, we're starting to come out a lot in the Mormon Church.
The Mormon Church, the Catholic Church, the Evangelical Church.
Yeah.
So one topic too that always kind of blows me away now that I've left the Mormon Church and I have such a big percentage of my friends are gay, bisexual, and trans. I think that honestly that's where I feel accepted because I do have a very like dominant authoritative personality.
Mhm.
And inside the Mormon church, I had to kind of quiet that down and play soft and nice, right?
Mhm.
And when I'm with my lesbian friends, especially if there are a lot of masked lesbians, then I can just be me and nobody questions it. Nobody expects me to be this really feminine, soft Jenny. The gay guys, I always feel like I relate to gay men so much because they do have that. Most of my gay men, they have a lot of creativity. They have a very soft,
Right.
nurturing side, but they're still men. So they're still in positions of authority. So just doing what I do, podcasting and working with political groups and things like that, I'm a very outspoken individual. I do have a lot of what people would call masculine energy, but then I still have that soft side. So gay men are always my go-to. Like I'm better friends with gay men and trans women than just your regular heterosexual females. I don't quite understand. Since having so many friends who are in the LGBTQ community, one thing that really stands out to me is the double standard regarding what people call body mutilation, right?
Right.
So let me tell you what that looks like. A lot of my just straight up heterosexual female friends, especially because I'm from Utah and Arizona and I've lived in wealthy country club neighborhoods, predominantly Mormon, almost all of them have had the mommy makeovers, which is redoing their whole entire stomach. Some of them have had their vaginal areas surgically redone after child, lots of breast augmentation,
Right.
lots of resurfacing of the skin and facelifts and Botox and cheek implants. Now, I have never had anything done myself, but I'm not opposed to it. Like at
Right.
some point, I don't know, if I had the money, I wouldn't mind having everything lifted and tucked. And my male friends have had all kinds of hair plugs. They've also had facelifts and Botox and lip flips and things like that. And some of my male friends have also had surgery to remove like flabs under their arms and things like that. And to me, there is a lot of mutilation going on, as well as, let's talk about circumcision, right? Like that's a Christian accepted genital mutilation that we do on children who are not able to even give their consent. So my heterosexual community has all kinds of things that they're doing to their bodies. And any of my girlfriends who've had the mommy makeover, and the mommy makeover is usually like the facelift, the boob job, the tummy, sometimes the butt, some liposuction out of the back, and like the flabby arms, right? It is a complete body makeover. And what they say about it is, I feel so much more like myself now. Like walking around with my flabby mom belly, walking around with stretch marks and fat rolls under my arms, I didn't feel like me. And it hits me now that I'm on the other side of my conservative Christian life and community, how hypocritical that is. I don't feel like myself now that I've gained weight as a grandma. Nobody would bat an eyelash if I went and had everything redone, right? I could do whatever I want, go Jenny. But if I decide to have my boobs chopped off and things sewn up down yonder and cut my hair short and just lean into being a guy, well, then I'm some type of a freak.
Correct.
Does that not seem like the most egregious double standard that you've ever heard of?
Yes, it is. There's double standards in everything.
So I think that a lot of what happens with our judgment of transsexual people, like yourself, is that you've taken yourself out of the male gaze.
Mm-hmm.
You're not doing this for the patriarchy. You're not doing this for other heterosexual dudes at the top of the power structure. I think that the problem that Christianity has with you and that MAGA has with you and that Trump's White House has with you is that you don't give a rat's ass about them. You're living your own life on your own terms.
It's just like I said, my biggest hashtag is true self. That's who one wants to be. in the transgender community. It's not about what they're considering us, you know? It's not that I'm going to go and they're quick to, when you see like a mass shooting and it is a trans person, oh, it's because they are, you know, trans.
Right. And if it is because they're trans, it's because they get bullied and
Yeah.
misjudged their whole entire life.
Yeah. It's funny how there's that double standard. Yet when you see when like the young man shot at Trump, they didn't bring that up at all, you know? Or even if it's a conservative person, but they always say the manifesto it was something liberal, you know, which they never really put them up. And you never know if there was just some conservative person that was angry at what's going on, you know, or having a change of mind.
Right. Because if you're a good conservative, if I'm a good conservative girl and I get the boob jobs and I mutilate my body in any way that I want to, but I vote for MAGA and I go to bed with men, then that's good. That's fine. Everybody's okay with that. But if you're not doing it all for them and you're not voting for them and you're not supporting their policies and your money isn't going to support them, then you're the enemy. And I think that a trans woman like yourself, you are the ultimate enemy of the state because you really don't care about them. You're not pandering to them. You're not attracted by them, and you're not trying to be one of them.
No, I can say just like you were, I was far conservative to the right. I was Mormon. I was a prepper, especially back then living in Florida. I
had a 2-year supply all the time.
I wanted
had all the everything.
Yeah, I seriously even wanted to build a bunker to go to. I wanted to buy land and build a bunker. That was a big thing. I wanted to be that prepper because they teach us so much in the church. And I was looking at all this different food companies and everything. When you look at Wise Foods, their headquarters are in Salt Lake City, Utah. And then something just threw me over the edge to the left. Because there were some things that I thought women's rights had to be protected. I have a daughter and I wanted those certain rights that were hers to be protected. Like pro-choice. I was very pro-choice, which is very beyond, you know, that's not
very conservative. You can't talk about that at church.
And then I think what threw me over the edge going to the left, which I register as an independent, so I can choose which way I want to go. Because if I see a conservative that has good talking points, I can vote that way. But I think was really January 6th. I'm like, I voted for this side. Then they go and do that to our nation's capital. And
such a red flag.
It was a red flag. It was like they don't, you know, want to follow these laws and they can't just say, oh, we lost gracefully. It was a red flag. I was to the point where in the Mitt Romney campaign, I helped out. I would go to the headquarters, make phone calls for him. I never met the guy. I had a chance to do it. And yeah.
He was the Lord's candidate.
It's a good experience. Like you've probably already seen, it's a good experience to go out and help in
it is.
Campaign. It was fun. I had fun doing it.
And here you are now on the left. So, Jules, would you like to speak about how you identify?
Oh, sure.
So you left the Mormon church. You dressed like a man. You were married to a woman. And then you leave the Mormon church and you got divorced sometime around that timeline.
I've had 2 wives. So the first wife, we were sealed and everything. That was on her end, kind of situation like you had. She started cheating on me.
I'm sorry. That's so heartbreaking.
Yeah. The second person I married, atheist, complete atheist, liberal, and me, I'm this conservative. We met at our job. So with her, it just, several things happened. The last thing, actually, when I first came out bisexual to her, and she was respectable of that. She's all, I'm glad you came and told me. You know, but when the cross-dressing and all that came around, and she found some of it that was over the edge. It's because at first you don't know, and you don't want to outright show it, and then you have to slowly ease into it because a lot of people don't understand it. Family won't understand it, stuff like that.
And that's a really hard situation, but don't you feel like it's better for you to be in a relationship with someone who is attracted to you as your female self?
Yes. So what I started looking at is saying I'm more pansexual, as they say, because it's everything in the frying pan, because it could be a trans man, a heterosexual man, it could be or cisgender man, it could be a cisgender woman, lesbian. It's everybody that I would look at. Instead of saying bisexual, it would be pansexual.
Okay.
Everything there. And so it's very fluid as you look at it, because you can one day be, oh yeah, I'm attracted to this man, but then it might be more this woman. That's what I started finding.
Do you have a significant other right now?
Actually, right now I don't.
Because you just moved.
Yeah, I just moved. But I think I have noted some admirers.
Again, I've never seen you without your female presenting identifiers. So how long have you been dressing and presenting male?
Oh, it's just been, when I moved here, like to work, I always had to, because obviously since the administration started, and I'd never presented female to work. And then it's a long process. You have to talk to your manager, talk to HR, you have to change the names, and there's a lot to it.
What percentage of the time do you dress as Jules, the trans female that I know?
I would say right now, I would say like 40. Split at 60-40. And now, as we are seeing this whole new memo, and especially for my podcasts, I would, my streams and everything. But now that's going to take a change on the channel, because we don't want to see that label that was put on that memo. Like I said, you're starting to see this whole new policy. Where's the biggest place that they're going to see people?
Mm-hmm.
On YouTube, on any social media, that will affect it. Unfortunately, the channel is going to have to take a whole different angle. And I think tonight I'm going to do my own stream, kind of talking to my subscribers about it, because I told them to watch this stream later on after the recording and editing to know which way we're headed because of what is going on.
Jules, it breaks my heart on so many levels for people to have to be controlled like this, because as a society, we're supposed to have legislation and punitive measures in place to protect the general population against people who are harming them. Those psychopaths out there who murder people and commit horrible crimes,
Correct.
Theft, obviously, abuse, things like that. Our social structure under our social contract is supposed to protect us from harm. And LGBTQ individuals like yourself, you're not harming anybody. You're just living your own life. And I do think that this is where it crosses over. A lot of the conversation coming out of the White House right now is about children who are going through surgical and chemical transition. And I personally believe that no child under the age of 18 should make a decision about their sexual identity, surgery to their body parts. But I also don't think that children should be able to join a political party or an action group of Trump USA on their high school campus in Texas. I don't think that children under the age of 18 should be able to join a church, get baptized, pay tithing. They certainly shouldn't be able to get married and make other major life-altering decisions, drop out of school, etc. That's a conversation that's getting lumped into discussions around trans rights for adults. So
Right.
Totally separate category, and I just want to be really clear for my audience that no, I am a common sense liberal, and I don't think that children should make life-altering decisions.
And
because
I was just going to jump in, interject on this. And you're right. I think one of Trump's first executive orders with the trans community was basically, he made the age was 19. And I thought that was good because I get that question a lot on my stream. And I said, no, yeah, there should be an age of accountability. Like we learn in the Mormon church, that's age 8.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, you can't drink. You
yeah,
can't do a lot of things until you're a certain age.
yeah. And I thought age 19 was actually pretty good. I thought it was a good choice. I've seen some good things he's done, but yet I think there's been more harmful things.
With individuals like yourself who are over the age of 18, who can make their own decisions, I think it's a tragedy that anybody thinks it's any of our business if you want to dress like a woman, if you want to surgically transition into being an actual woman. You're not harming anybody. And you are self-expressing in ways that as a heterosexual, I'm allowed to do whatever I want to. I've actually had surgery down yonder after, and it was actually a forced surgery. My surgeon decided to vaginally reconstruct me.
Mhm.
And I woke up from a surgery for hysterectomy. I woke up from a surgery for a hysterectomy, and my surgeon dropped that bomb on me. By the way, I did some reconstruction down there, and then he elbowed my husband and said, "You'll thank me later." So my surgeon was allowed to do all kinds of stuff to my private parts, and nobody cared. But if you are not harming anybody and you just want to be a little bit more of yourself and self-express and feel more comfortable, why is that anybody's business? You're not harming anybody.
Right. I don't know. It's just their belief system on that end. As we look at it as our Mormon, ex-Mormon selves right now, when we look back at our Mormon selves, what were they teaching? And they say that we can go back all the way to Garden of Eden. And I always use this on my channel because people will bring the, you were created as
Adam and Eve,
not
Adam and Eve.
created Adam and Eve. And then I'll rebut to them. Okay, I say it because I always tell them, don't bring the religious and political stuff in here. I'm like, we're here to talk about this. I'm like, we can talk peacefully. We're not really here to do that. Because I have a lot of subscribers that do have religious trauma. But to get back to my point is I'm like, let's look at Genesis. I say, when God created Adam, he noticed that he needed a mate. And he took a part of Adam, he took his rib, and created Eve from that. So in retrospect, you can look at Eve as a trans form of Adam.
What? If you take the Bible literally in that Adam and Eve story, she literally was his own rib.
Yeah. And you should see some of the responses I get.
Well, do you know the first baptism in the New Testament after Jesus dies is a transsexual Ethiopian? He was a eunuch. He had his private parts cut off, and he was the first baptism. And people are like, oh, but that wasn't his choice. Maybe it was, and maybe it wasn't. We don't know. Maybe he volunteered to be a eunuch. Maybe he said, hey, castrate me. I want to be gender neutral here. And that was the very first baptism. And they didn't send him away. They didn't say, oh, no, yep, let's check in those britches. You don't have the right parts, so we're not going to baptize you. And I have had so much hate on my videos when I talk about the first baptism in Christian mythology was transsexual Ethiopian. People lose their minds over that, but it's in there. Open your Bible.
Yeah, and I get people that say, but it's implied in the Bible that the DNA was changed. I'm like,
it's not.
It's not. I'm like, it's not in there. I'm like, that's just more proof that there's anachronisms, that things are incorrect. That this is actually a fictional tale.
Oh, Jules, you just kind of blew my mind.
It's amazing how many excuses people try to come up with that.
Well, people try to come up with excuses because they don't understand it. And that's the biggest lesson that I've learned, because leaving the Mormon church, I had so many prejudices against people, and I converted to Christianity for a while before I left and became atheist. And everybody was my enemy, right? Everybody was under the influence of Satan except for me. I was
Right.
chosen and righteous, and I had Jesus in my heart, but everybody else, the gay people and the non-believers, they were all burning in hell forever. And it's been a process for me to learn to see things from other people's perspective and to love and accept the gays and lesbians around me, to love and accept my trans friends, to love and accept my friends who are believers of different sorts and non-believers, etc. And my biggest lesson, my personal biggest takeaway, is that I don't necessarily have to understand it myself to accept it and hold space for the people who do understand it. I'm not polyamorous, but I was Mormon for so long. How could I be, right? And I'm not trans. So I don't understand what it's like to go through the process that you've gone through, but I don't have to.
Yeah.
I can accept that process is real and beautiful and meaningful for you and hold that space for you to be able to live that life. And you don't understand what it was like to be a stay-at-home mom.
Correct.
You don't understand what it's like to be a blonde living in Tucson, Arizona with a grandbaby who likes to hike and eat really spicy Mexican food. Like, you don't have to understand me to hold space for the fact that I'm entitled to live my life and eat all the spicy salsa that I possibly want to eat. And that holding space is, I think, the most important missing ingredient in our society right now. There are so many people who are just bigoted and hateful, and because they don't get it, they think, well, we have to fight against this group of people or that group of people. People who don't get why someone would illegally cross the border into America because their lives are shit and they never have opportunity and they live in constant fear. They don't get that, but maybe we should hold space for the fact that some people do want to come to America. And yes, let's have that process for them to have legal citizenship. But if they're not hurting anyone, let's connect with that dream for them. And if someone wants to wear a purple wig and a skirt and high heels, the other guys around you, they don't have to understand why.
Mhm.
But it's time that we all just step back and hold that space for one another to live the lives that we want to live. My last question for you is, if you were sitting down right now with Pam Bondi or somebody like her, the MAGA family next door, what would you wish that they would understand about you as a trans woman?
I would just want them to really sit down, and it probably would be really difficult to just really look at things in my shoes. You know, what if we had turned the law the other way around? That you couldn't be your cisgender straight self.
What if I had to be a lesbian?
Yeah, I
What
mean,
if that was the law? Jenny has to go find a wife.
exactly. Put yourself in those shoes. How would you feel? You have to be able to look at things through another person's eyes and be able to know how they would feel, how they are feeling.
That's a really good final word. Jules, I'm really sorry for the things that you're going through. And my ask for my audience is that you spend a little bit of time, first of all, getting to know some of the current policies against LGBTQ individuals and some of the targeting of the trans community, and then reach out to your politicians, email your congressman, email your senator, email the White House. Let them know that you want to protect the rights of our LGBTQ friends, because America is supposed to be a melting pot. We're supposed to be a safe space for everybody. Our law enforcement should target criminals who are harming people. And Jules, again, the data, there are so many more just plain heterosexual men harming people right now. Just in the time that we've been on this episode, heterosexual men have harmed all kinds of people. Categorizing somebody by their sexual identity, by their gender identity, skin color, hair color, whatever, is just not okay. And Martin Luther King, of course, in his I Have a Dream speech, put it perfectly, that we should be judged by the content of our character and not by the color of our skin. not by the color of our wig and the false eyelashes and who we love and who we choose to date and marry. Jules, you're a remarkable person and you're always so kind-hearted. I appreciate your help with some of my unhoused kiddos in Tucson and the light that you are to other people who are going through confusing and uncertain times. If people want to find you, then will you please tell us your channel so that they can go watch?
Actually, yeah. So it's going to, as of after this, I'm going to go and change the name. It's going to be called Jules Gems X. Then it'll say Area 5T1. At this time right now, it is under Jules Treasures. I'm probably going to change it right after this because I debuted my sign. That's where they can find me. The reason it says Area 5T1 as opposed to Area 51, 51's always been a lucky number to me. It's very significant in my life. But I put 5T1 because we do discuss 5Ts on my channel. We talk about transition. I talk about triathlon, which I like to participate in. I talk about trends, obviously in clothing. I talk about teaching, and there's several topics in that. And then I talk about trucks. And
I love it.
And that's about my Xterra. And my truck, my Xterra is called the Gem X. So that's why we're doing the name change on the channel.
Love it. Love it. And I would say too that anybody who has somebody in their lives who is transitioning or identifies as trans, I think that, Jules, you just have such a fun, supportive community, and it just seems so well-rounded. You talk about a variety of topics, and you just have a good crew of people that pop onto your lives and watch your videos. Thank you so much for discussing today. Any final thoughts?
Oh, no, we have fun on my channel, on my streams. I have great moderators that know who to take out when it goes over the edge. So we have fun on there. But yeah, they can come over to my channel, hit a like and subscribe, go from there. I'm going to try to stream more often.
Awesome. Jules, thank you so much for talking. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll put some of those links down in the description, and we'll talk to you later. Bye, everyone. Okay.
Bye.